Peace, family. This is your brother Willie Muhammad, and welcome again to another broadcast of Class is in Session. We're coming to you from WBOK 12:30 a.m., and we appreciate each and every one of you all who take the time out every Monday at 3 p.m. to tune in and encourage others to tune in. And if you want to give me some feedback on the show, you can reach me. I'm on Facebook at Willie Muhammad, and you can also reach me on Instagram at Truth Spreader, and send me some feedback back, or even some show suggestions. Today, what we're going to be dealing with is something that I saw in the news media last week, and it kind of bothered me in the sense that it just shows that the enemies to our rise are still up with the same tricks, which shouldn't come as a surprise to us. And you may say, well, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the recent release of files concerning the JFK assassination. Now, you may say, what does that have to do with us? Well, we're going to get into what that has to do with us. But first, what I'll do is I want to play a clip, and it's given to give those who may not be familiar with what we're talking about, or the recent decision by this administration to release more files concerning the assassination of JFK, John F. Kennedy, the former president, a former president of the United States. So let's hear the first clip, and then we're going to get into what we're talking about. And I want to discuss, what do I mean when I say how the enemy it never ceases in its attempt to discredit our black leaders, even when they are no longer present in our midst. So let's hit his first clip.
Kennedy, a warm welcome. President Donald Trump ordering the release on Thursday of some, but not all, of the secret files surrounding the 1963 JFK assassination. More than 2,800 uncensored documents were posted immediately to the National Archives website, a large cache that may reveal new insights into a tragedy that has been endlessly dissected for decades. The rest will be released on what the White House calls a rolling basis until the end of April, a CIA spokesman telling Reuters that every single one of the around 18,000 remaining records in the collection will ultimately be released, with only 1% of the material left redacted. Trump touted the release, which Congress had scheduled 25 years ago, on Twitter, writing that they were, quote, so interesting. The president was reluctant to agree to agency requests to hold back thousands of documents. Officials say CIA Director Mike Pompeo argued to the White House for keeping some material secret.
And we're back. So President Trump decided to give the go-ahead to release some of these confidential files regarding the assassination of John F. Kennedy. But what's interesting, after making that decision to do so, all the information that I have received or read on the news or on social media as it relates to the assassination of John F. Kennedy had nothing to do with John F. Kennedy. Instead, much of the files that have been released have more to do with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his alleged extramarital affairs, right? Which many people have heard about and read about for some years. And as I saw this, I'm like, I thought this was about JFK and whether or not the U.S. government played a role, or U.S. government agencies played a role in the death of one of its own presidents. But instead of revealing that, they took another opportunity to discredit, to blemish, or try to take away from the righteous and moral position that Dr. King took as he fought for justice, freedom, and equality for black people, and really for all people. So they released more about, his alleged extramarital affairs, but they didn't talk about the dirty stuff that they did, which they were trying to get Dr. King to take his own life. And some of you all may not be aware of that effort, but you're going to be aware of it after today's show. And I want you all to go and get the book, the COINTEL Profiles, or even get online and watch some of the videos on YouTube, because if you haven't taken time out to educate yourself about the COINTELPRO program in America, then you have no idea of how this government, yes, this government with taxpayers' dollars, actually try to discredit, disrupt, and outright kill black leaders and black organizations. From the Black Panthers, from those who are considered to be radical and those who are considered to be not radical, they still were trying to disrupt them. And they even after the death of some of these leaders, the COINTELPRO, the FBI still followed their children. So when I thought further about this, I saw this other attempt by the government to further go at Dr. King because of what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan did leading up to the 10-10-15 march, or the gathering, or the 20th anniversary of the historic Million Man March, where the minister had traveled around this country and he began to educate and bring evidence, to bring the words of Dr. King, the recordings of Dr. King, to universities of HBCUs and even on interviews, to let people know that we are making a grave mistake when we just try to pigeonhole Dr. King in this box that has been created by the U.S. government, where it's all about I have a dream, and little white girls holding the hands of little black boys, and judge a man by the content of his character and not the color of his skin. But what they don't talk about, which the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan began to start exposing more and to informing our people more of, is that Dr. King also was encouraging our people to begin to start using their dollar as a way to combat white supremacy. What they don't talk about is how Dr. King began to start reassessing and reevaluating his views on this thing called integration. And he began to wonder if, in his own words, if he had integrated his people into a burning house, right? And so the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was showing how Dr. King even called for the boycott of Christmas. Now you think about that. Now here's a man who was openly a Christian, openly a reverend, right? He was over a church. He spoke in many churches. What would make him call for a boycott for Christmas? Maybe he also understood that currently this Christmas festivity has really nothing to do with Jesus, and it's just a way to exploit people's love for Jesus for the financial gain, oftentimes for people who really don't even believe in Jesus. So what I want to do first is I'm going to play a clip by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and in this clip you're going to hear him. He's speaking at a HBCU. I think it was on the East Coast, probably in Baltimore. He's speaking, and you're going to hear him talk about the evolution of Dr. King, right? Because people just want to make people just remember Dr. King as the one who talked about he had a dream. The minister in this clip is going to reference a book written by Tavis Smiley, and Tavis Smiley began to start talking about the evolution of Dr. King and his ideas as it relates to how we should go about fighting for justice for our people. And you see in some of the writings of Dr. King, he had met with the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad once, but he was also in the process of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and other civil rights leaders coming together to begin to start addressing the poverty that is in fact was and still is impacting our people. So let's play this first clip, not the second clip, or the first clip by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and the minister is talking about the evolution of Dr. King. Let's go. Check it out.
But in the last year of his life, you should read Tavis Smiley's book on the death of a king. And the preachers turned on doctor. Wait now. See, some of you are angry with me, thinking I'm trying to steal Dr. King's legacy. Hell no. Don't put that on me. And don't let the white man put that on you so you could put that on me. I'm raising Dr. King because it is wrong for you to think that that man died because he had a dream. That man was a revolutionary thinker in the last days of his life. Some of his inner circle turned on him. They didn't agree with him talking against the war in Vietnam. He was hurting that his own staff, some of them disagreed with him. Then churches denied him. They didn't want him in their pulpit. Now it's easy to put his picture up and talk that crap about how you love him. You a damn liar if you loved him. I want you to listen. If you loved him, why did you let the writers of history write him down as a dreamer and pacify you with all these streets and boulevards named after him? But if you read his life in the last 2 years of his life, he met with my teacher. They had a beautiful discussion February 66. I don't know what they talked about, but I know my teacher. He loved Dr. King, but he showed him prophecy. He showed him where we are to separate from this enemy and not be integrated into him as Moses didn't integrate the children of Israel into Pharaoh. So in that last night, when he said, I want to get the language straight tonight, he stopped talking Negro and began talking black. He even agreed that separation might be better for us for a while. Like a people sick or diseased, you take them out of the public and you heal them. And then you send them back to the world. I didn't know these were things that Dr. King was saying. And when I read it, I said, this man, you must know the reality of Dr. King. He's more than a dreamer. And don't you let them throw the dream speech on you from 63. Let them play for you the speech that he made in New York City when he condemned the hypocrisy of the Johnson government that's fighting a war in Vietnam against poor people there and practicing violence, then want Dr. King to preach nonviolence to us while they're training you to kill people that never did nothing to you overseas.
And we're back. Interesting. You know, and what's happening by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan informing more in particularly the young people. Now they're beginning to have a different view of Dr. King. But once again, here comes the enemy, supposed to be talking about the JFK assassination files, and they come back and they're releasing stuff talking about Dr. King. When I remember in college, I read a book about the FBI and Dr. King, where they talked about how the FBI, strategically set women in the offices that they sent to work around Dr. King after they studied Dr. King and knew his likes and his dislikes, his temperaments, his struggles. And they would sit women into the office that would be favorable to him physically in their appearance, but they knew that there would be women that were sent there with a mission to be with Dr. King. Now this is the government, the U.S. government, and if they did this to a man who was advocating nonviolence, then you can imagine what they did to such organizations as the Black Panther Party, the Nation of Islam, and these many other organizations that were working to benefit for the benefit of our people. And unlike many of those other organizations, the Nation of Islam is one of the few, the very few, and some people would even argue the only, that has been able to survive the attack of the FBI, this program, and is still around today fighting on the behalf of our people. So what we're going to do, we're coming up on the first break, and I was going to go into some clips that would talk about the stuff that these files are not saying about JFK, but we'll get into that. But instead, what I'm going to do after we return, I'll play a clip that would educate you all, if you're not familiar with it, about the COINTELPRO program. So this is your brother Willie Muhammad, and this is Class is in Session, and this is WBOK, where it is 12:30 a.m., where it is real talk for real times, and we'll be right back. Alright, family, we're back. It's your brother Willie Muhammad. Class is in session, so I hope you are taking notes. And I mentioned earlier some things I would like you to go and research or watch on YouTube now. One, go and Google and get the book, any information that you can find about the COINTEL program. It's COINTELPRO, the COINTEL program, and educate yourself on the COINTEL program, and you see about the dirt that this country actually did against black organizations that were only trying to repair a condition that they didn't cause. The organizations like the Black Panthers, the Nation of Islam, Dr. King's organization, all these black organizations, Us by Dr. Malana Karenga, all of them were trying to repair a condition that they found their people in. Marcus Garvey, right, the UNIA. But yet here, this government comes, and what this government does is create a program to try to paint them as terrorists and use that as a justification to violate their law, violate their rights, to have them under investigation, to falsely accuse them, to pit one member against another member, one organization against another organization. And they even went so far to disrupt the families of these individuals and members of these organizations, where they will spread rumors about one person sleeping with another person, or this person mishandling money. This government did that. So if you're not aware, you have to become aware, because some people don't believe that such evil has been done by the very government that people are talking about. It is disrespectful to kneel during the national anthem. Well, how disrespectful is it for a government to seek to destroy and discredit leaders who only wanted to see their people be treated justly and have basically what this country says it stands on. So I want to play a clip. It's about the COINTELPRO, and I want you to check it out and listen to what it says took place with this. I may even play two, but here's the first one. Check it out.
Buried in the shadows of America's history books, an era known to its victims as America's dirty war, a war against its own citizens. It's been 54 years since the FBI launched a covert war against political dissidents, the counterintelligence program, more infamously known by its acronym, COINTELPRO.
All the people don't have freedom, all the people don't have justice, and all the people don't have power, so that means none of us do.
The Black Panther Party, the American Indian Movement, anti-war organizations, even civil rights leaders and Hollywood stars. The list of targets was endless. Fueled by the frenzied paranoia of McCarthyism and the growth of radicalism, the objective of COINTELPRO was simple: undermine and destroy popular movements by any means.
Infiltration, destabilization.
The Brown Beret, we were victims of agent provocateurs, police infiltration. They tried to incite our members to go and commit acts of violence.
As the black nationalist movements gained traction nationwide, it also gained the FBI's attention.
They labeled the Black Panther Party as public enemy number one.
And the promising young leader Fred Hampton a target.
When I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary.
Hampton was shot to death in his apartment. He was 21 years old.
If you take Fred Hampton, it was out and out murder. Direct murder. If they can't misdirect him, they just kill him. That's the rule. That's the history of the United States government.
American Indians are becoming militant, demanding the government take action to help solve their problems of poverty and discrimination.
At the site of the 1890 Wounded Knee Massacre, the American Indian Movement held the government at gunpoint. The FBI moved in immediately. Dennis Banks was an AIM leader.
The suspicion was started to rise after we realized what they were doing to the Black Panthers, and we had a series of meetings, the American Indian Movement did, saying, look, we've got to be aware that there's a great possibility that they might be, targeting us for infiltration.
A reign of terror soon gripped the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. Over 60 AIM members were murdered. Others were dragged through the courts. Like Leonard Peltier, imprisoned for murdering 2 FBI agents, but some suggest the evidence and witnesses were flawed, corrupted. Today, to many, he's America's foremost political prisoner.
What we recognize now as political prisoners are people who came out of this era, who were the results of these attacks and who are still in prison. The United States government does not recognize having any political prisoners.
Before there were the WikiLeaks papers or the Pentagon papers, there were the COINTELPRO papers. In the late 1970s, activists broke into the FBI's field office in Pennsylvania, where they stole thousands of documents pertaining to the FBI's program. Almost immediately, a scandal exploded, and top officials from the FBI's National Bureau here in Washington, D.C. were summoned to Capitol Hill for a congressional investigation which exposed the FBI's covert war against political dissidents in the United States. The Church Committee concluded many of the techniques used would be intolerable in a democratic society today, even if all targets had been involved in violent activity. But COINTELPRO went far beyond that. The Bureau conducted a sophisticated vigilante operation aimed squarely at preventing the exercise of First Amendment rights of speech and association.
COINTELPRO was very dangerous for American society and even for the American judicial system to support that kind of raw terrorism.
A culture of surveillance, paranoia, and suspicion from the past that some argue has left American protest or dissident movements in disarray even today. Jahan Hafiz, RT, Washington, D.C.
Okay, so we're back. Now, what do you think? Did you hear what they said the government did? The evil tricks that they did? How they pitted one group against another group, one person against another person? So when people try to bring up this matters, and we may even do a show on this, when they say the Nation of Islam killed Malcolm X, one of the first questions I ask them is, how much research have you done on the COINTELPRO? program. And if they tell me none, I really shut the conversation down, because obviously you're not serious, and what you're really doing is repeating what you've heard somebody else say. If you don't know about the COINTELPRO program, then you really don't understand the battle or the enemy that these organizations face in their effort to try to improve our condition. You heard what the guy said, that many of the most evil tactics that they did, they didn't write them down, or more than likely they wrote them down, but they destroyed those files. They will send letters. They sent the letter to Dr. King trying to get him to commit suicide. And in one of the videos you're going to listen to, they sent the letter to this woman and she actually committed suicide. That's murder. Yeah, they may have not put the gun to her head themselves and pulled the trigger, but nonetheless, that's still murder. All right. So you heard that one. Let me let you hear the second clip about the COINTELPRO. I really want us to be educated on this. So check it out one more time.
COINTELPRO stands for Counterintelligence Program, primarily run by the FBI as a covert action program against domestic dissidents. The use of infiltration, psychological warfare, harassment through the legal system, and the use of extralegal force and violence, including murder, probably began in the 1950s and is now a permanent feature of U.S. government. Targets included the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement, the anti-war movement, the environmental movement, opposition political parties, and basically any progressive group in American society. The Senate and congressional hearings into the activities of the FBI and CIA were crushed. The Senate committee's report was edited by the agencies being investigated before its publication. The House committee's report, including an account of FBI and CIA obstruction of its inquiry, was suppressed altogether. Senator Church and Congressman Pike, the committee chairs, were both targeted in their re-election campaigns by the intelligence agencies and defeated, their careers destroyed. The Freedom of Information Act did open up access to FBI documents, and lawsuits forced the release of some COINTELPRO files to the media, but the most important files were withheld or destroyed, and former operatives report that the most heinous crimes were never committed to writing. William C. Sullivan, who ran the COINTELPRO program in the 1960s, was killed in a 1977 hunting accident shortly before giving testimony to a grand jury in 1977. The only two FBI officials who were ever prosecuted for COINTELPRO crimes were quickly pardoned by President Ford. There was an appearance of reform that was largely aimed at placating a weary public that had become disillusioned after Watergate. The most prominent target of COINTELPRO in the 1960s was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who received a blackmail letter from J. Edgar Hoover that detailed the existence of Dr. King's extramarital affairs and suggested he should suicide himself to preclude the release of the material to the press and its negative effect on his family and his movement. The surveillance of Dr. King included the 112th Military Intelligence Unit and even the use of U-2 spy planes to take photographs. Dr. King was marked, barely a month before his murder, for elimination as a potential messiah who could unify and electrify the black movement. The FBI planned to replace him, quote, in his role of the leadership of the Negro people, with conservative black lawyer Samuel Pierce, who was later named to Ronald Reagan's cabinet. The theme of forced suicide is repeated on others targeted by COINTELPRO. Jean Seberg was an actress involved in civil rights. Her husband received a forged letter from the FBI detailing a fictitious affair she was supposedly having with a black activist. The actress was pregnant at the time and attempted suicide, had a miscarriage, and eventually did commit suicide. Forced suicide on a COINTELPRO target allows intelligence agencies deniability for the crime. In effect, it is the perfect crime. A total of 2,300 officially approved COINTEL actions were admitted to the Senate Intelligence Committee, but thousands more have since been revealed. Ultimately, FBI documents disclosed 6 major programs. FBI operatives were directed to disrupt meetings of targeted groups, spread rumors, inflame disagreements over what people normally fight over, money, politics, race, gender, sex, and to exacerbate rivalries and jealousy, to lead activists into unnecessary danger, and to set them up for false prosecutions. False news stories, forged documents, and anonymous letters and phone calls, as well as pressure on landlords and their employers, make up just some of the strategies used against activists. The major violence of the domestic terrorist campaign was directed at the black nationalist and American Indian movements. These individuals were readily imprisoned on false charges or assassinated. British Commander Frank Kitson first codified counterinsurgency operations theory in his book Low-Intensity Operations, Subversion, Insurgency, and Peacekeeping, and he insists that infiltration and psychological operations be mounted against dissident groups in normal times before any mass movement can develop. These tactics were adopted into COINTELPRO against American citizens in peacetime, with considerable energy spent ensuring that the different progressive groups did not link up and cooperate. Specifically, the anti-war movement, composed of suburban white youth, and the black nationalist movement. There was also a major effort to preclude African American leaders from linking up with leaders in Africa. Infiltration of the KKK by the FBI reached 10 to 20% of its membership at the height of the civil rights struggle, and these assets, along with neo-Nazi party members, were used to attack civil rights workers and activists. COINTEL operations are presently being incorporated into the development of microwave and radio frequency radiation weapons. Dissidents that in the past were visibly attacked or assassinated in a traditional manner are now targeted for elimination using electromagnetic weapons. These internal dissidents are used as human guinea pigs and experimental subjects in terminal experiments that are designed to force a suicide, incarceration, or premature death due to the effects of ionizing and non-ionizing radiation. These political assassinations are accomplished with invisible bullets that leave no obvious injuries. The driving of a target to suicide using microwave hearing as well as other techniques is perfectly deniable because these individuals are tormented invisibly, unable to seek help from the psychiatric community due to the symptoms of the attacks mimicking symptoms of schizophrenia that naturally affect several million Americans. Thus, the intelligence agencies have achieved perfect deniability for their crimes.
We're back. Got to do the research, family. Now, let's get down to this. It is well known, and books have been written about it, documentaries have been done about it, magazine articles have been done about it, people have talked, shows have been done on this topic. Like, where are all those files that's coming out that would show about the extramarital affair that took place between Marilyn Monroe and John F. Kennedy? Where are all the books? Where are the files that's going to talk about how Marilyn Monroe contacted this man's wife and said that she felt that JFK was going to leave his wife and his family to marry her? So in all of those files that they have, 2,800 files, you can only find stuff about Dr. King. But what about JFK? And why is it that that information is not put out, but then you want to come out and put this stuff out about Dr. King? Because what it is a continuation of this plot, which is to discredit black leadership. They did it then, and they're doing it now. They did it then, and they're doing it now, and their ability to do it now has further increased. So I found a little trailer, and in this trailer is for a documentary. Well, guess what they're talking about? The numerous women that JFK was involved in. So check this first clip out, and we'll be back to continue this discussion.
the dangerous sexual liaisons of President John F. Kennedy.
He's sleeping with a woman that's kind of come to him out of organized crime, mafia.
Where sex was concerned, John F. Kennedy thought he was untouchable, invulnerable.
Several of Kennedy's conquests were considered a risk to national security, but the president ignored the warnings.
He was just furious that anyone had dared to intervene or tell him how to live his private life.
FBI files now prove that the press was ready to expose these scandals.
It would have spelled the end of any hope that President Kennedy could be re-elected, and possibly even his impeachment.
That's JFK's Women, the scandals revealed.
We're back. So here they want to dirty up Dr. King, but what about JFK? Right? And this is the thing, JFK was actually, he and his brother actually knew about the tactics that the COINTELPRO were doing against Dr. King. Now, here you talking about Dr. King's personal life, what's going on in his home, but here you have the president, the one that's sitting in there doing it. And then on top of that, J. Edgar Hoover. Here he's talking about Dr. King is an immoral man, allegedly having orgies and all of this type of stuff. But it's been documented that J. Edgar Hoover was homosexual. So you have the right you want to cast off on Dr. King, but look at what was going on with him. They have no moral authority to try to condemn our leaders because they are immoral themselves. So we can't fall for that, man. We can't allow them to paint the picture or give us the lens by which we're going to view and judge our leaders, because oftentimes they help to create the circumstance that causes our leaders to get caught up in certain traps, right? So that was the first audio you heard, and here's the second one, and this is the one where it's going to talk about how Marilyn Monroe actually called JFK's wife. And the subject of this comes from a book that was written about this issue. You got to go and get the research, family, so we can't allow anybody to try to act like they get on some high horse, like they're so righteous. So here's the second clip.
Marilyn Monroe died 51 years ago today. Historians have long written about the possibility she had a relationship with President John F. Kennedy. Nita Nair looks at a new book which claims Monroe actually called First Lady Jackie Kennedy to talk about it.
The long-rumored love affair between President John F. Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe is at the center of Christopher Anderson's new book, These Few Precious Days, The Final Year of Jack with Jackie. Presidential historian Doug Weed thinks Anderson's sensational revelations could well be true.
It's the sort of thing that's unbelievable but really happens in history. Some of these things we're uncovering right now will move from speculation to fact as time progresses.
Anderson writes that when Jackie first entered the White House, she feared she'd never see her husband. Instead, sharing both home and office meant that she saw Kennedy many times a day, eventually deciding the White House years were the happiest time of my life.
But this window used to be the door in the olden days.
But Anderson also reports that Jackie knew about all of JFK's women. He says the affairs upset her, but she was willing to turn a blind eye as long as he didn't publicly embarrass her. It was his relationship with Marilyn Monroe that seemed to bother her the most, in large part because Marilyn was a loose cannon who could go public at any time, causing a scandal that would obliterate her husband's reputation, destroy her marriage, and hold her up to public ridicule. He claims that Monroe, aware her career was fading, thought Kennedy would marry her. "Can't you just see me as First Lady?" she told a friend. Anderson says Monroe even called Jackie and told her of JFK's promise to marry her. Jackie was unfazed. Marilyn, you'll marry Jack, that's great, and you'll move into the White House and you'll assume the responsibilities of First Lady, and I'll move out and you'll have all the problems. Weed says Jackie's acceptance of Kennedy's infidelity could be rooted in her relationship with the man she trusted most.
She was closest to her dad loved, adored her, and yet he had many infidelities in his life. So maybe she could come in some curious way to accept the fact that her husband, Jack, could love her and still be unfaithful to her.
For CBS This Morning, Vanita Nair, New York.
There's an endless fascination with the Kennedys, and certainly that relationship between the two of them.
The other thing I noticed there, the president could never take a bad photograph.
Yes, and Jackie Kennedy as well.
Exactly.
And we're back. So, they're talking about they're going to release more and more of these files periodically. That's what they claim. But we'll see. But as we get ready to wrap this thing up, family, as I say, it's very important for us to understand that we cannot allow the enemy of our rise, of our leaders, to try to paint us in a way, paint our people in a way that will make us run from them and reject their leadership and reject their guidance. We can't go for it, because as they're doing now, they're still trying to do it with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, but the minister is still standing. And in fact, on this coming Thursday, which will be November the 16th, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan will be giving a live press conference where he's going to give a special message to Donald Trump. This information will be able to be accessed online via webcast, and you'll be able to get the various playbacks, but it's at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So make sure you tune in. Check my social media pages to find out more. Before we close out, and as I mentioned to you that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan will be doing this press conference on next Thursday, November the 16th, 10 a.m. Eastern time, I just wanted to play a clip by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that he spoke prior to Donald Trump being elected. And I just want to play this clip as a reminder to show that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan warned us about what type of administration we were witnessing or preparing to see before he was elected. And some people may say, well, if that's the case, why didn't the minister push for Hillary? Why? It's the same thing. Isn't it something that in the midst of why this stuff is going on with Donald Trump regarding Russia, it also comes out where the sister from New Orleans, Donna Brazile, came out and said that how Hillary Clinton and her camp used her influence to basically take the Democratic nomination from Bernie Sanders. It's more of the same, and people were upset when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan gave the lecture, and it was titled "Satan Casting Out Satan," because they're the two sides of the same coin. And some of you all may not like that, but that's what it actually is, man. They're the same kind, same side, two different sides of the same coin. And the difference is just that, to me personally, Trump is just not polished like Clinton. So Trump is just a raw, we're seeing male white anger, male white supremacy in some of his rawest form. And that's what we're witnessing. So it's the same. And really, brothers and sisters, really Trump's administration is awakening black folks, those in the suites from those to those in the streets, where everybody's like, Trump, we got to get together. We got to do this. We got to do that. We have to do this. You know what I'm saying? So this is a good thing if we use it to begin to start waking up and begin to start doing something for ourselves. So that's what we have to understand. Sometimes we might curse. That may be a blessing in disguise, because like I mentioned earlier, Hillary Clinton getting into office would have just put many of us back to sleep. But we'd have felt like we've made it. The Messiah has come. The great white hope has come. She's going to save us. No, we need something that will help us to wake up where we can begin to start coming together, pooling our resources. And you're seeing it now, black folks' major idea now, the leading idea now when combating racism is to use our dollars, right? Before, most people just say, let's go have a march. But now people are like, no, man, we're going to use our dollars. That's what we're going to actually to begin to start doing. So to me, it's a good thing, so don't trip. But I want to play this clip where the minister is talking about how just what Donald Trump is going to do. And the minister has said numerous times before that Donald Trump is pulling off the mask of white civility. And that's what he's doing. Because some of us just don't want to realize that the core, the people that really should form the policy, they don't really care about people of color and poor people and even poor whites. And they don't care about whites who want to see this system corrected. The vast majority of whites in this country want to see the maintenance of this white supremacist structure. The vast majority. But hear this clip. Be sure to tune in to hear the minister, and be sure to tune in on next week. Peace.
Allah put Trump in power. So Negroes, don't let your heart be troubled. All my Hillary family. You know I love you. I never stopped loving you because you wanted the lying, deceiving, crooked Hillary. And I know you didn't want Trump. I didn't either. But I said some words. I was on Cliff Kelly's show, and I said, and I will guarantee you, if he becomes president, he'll take America exactly where America is heading. He'll take you there on a rocket ship. Be careful, America. You're headed into the abyss of hell. And if you make a mistake in choosing your leaders, maybe you'll go there faster. The ride is getting a little rough. Got my president up there. Let me tell you something. If you don't know God, you don't see God's hand. How could God ever put that white man in there that's ruining everything? Did you ever stop to think that that's his job? I'm going to point something out to you with God's help, and then I got to finish. I haven't even got started, but I got to finish. Listen to this. Trump said to y'all, you ain't got nothing to lose. Say your education is terrible. You ain't got no jobs. And y'all killing each other. What the hell can you lose by voting for me? I'll just speed it up. Now he's got Mad Dog Mattis and a hell of a cabinet. Notice the shakeup all in the government. Have you ever seen white folks so confused? Can't you see that's bringing the man's house down? If Satan casts out Satan, how then can his kingdom stand? Well, Mr. Trump is in a pickle now because Kim Jong-un is working on a ballistic, a missile, nuclear head, and you scared to death? That little Korean man gonna get us all killed. They better bomb him because he crazy. He gonna let that thing go. Well, let me tell you what my teacher told me. Whether you know it or not, America is a preserved area. No bomb gonna fall here because the God got you here, and the white man know he's keeping you a hostage because God is after you. Remember that song? My God, he calls me by the thunder. I hear him call within my soul. I ain't got long to stay here. Your time to serve these people is up, baby. You're gonna have to come up out of here. It's your time now.
We look forward to coming to you all again on next week. And thank you for tuning in, and spread the word. If you want to take out an ad during this show, let me know, because we are looking for advertisers. So this is your brother Willie Muhammad, and this is Class is in Session, and this is WBOK, where it's real talk for real time.